Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Am I audible? Hello everyone. Am I audible? Okay, great. So we will maybe just wait for 5 minutes if to see if anyone else is joining. Else we'll start. So till then, maybe whoever is in the chat, can I know your background, like what you currently do and what's what is your like intention, or maybe what do you want to learn more from this live stream? So it would be great. Like I can cover those topics. Okay, so I think if everything is fine, we will start. So welcome to today's session. This is the Meta Interaction SDK Masterclass, and what we'll be covering is now maybe I'll just start explaining everything, even if there is a bit of a lag. I will after if you have any question, you can ask in the chat. After some time, I'll just take the question and okay, so I'll talk about it, or I'll explain it. Else I maybe cover all the questions at the end as well. So because I don't know why the lag is happening. The internet is fine, but maybe we'll just start. So at the end as well. So because yeah, why the lag is happening. The internet is fine, but so in this masterclass we'll be covering about the interaction SDK. How does the interaction SDK works, and what are the different ways you can integrate the interaction SDK. Yeah. Okay, I think it's streaming. Yeah. So if you have been following my channel and some of the previous videos, I have already gone through the steps of how to integrate the Meta XR into Unity. But if anyone is new to this, I'll just quickly go through it. So once you are in Unity, you need to go, and in the package manager, you should have these packages, which is like the Meta XR Core SDK. And for this session, you need to have Meta XR Interaction SDK, Meta XR Interaction SDK Essentials, and also all other. But you can just have one package, which is Meta XR All-in-One SDK, which basically just installs all the other required packages. So if you go on to the Unity Asset Store, and if you search for Meta XR All-in-One SDK, you will find the SDK there. Yeah. So this is the package that you need to add to your assets. Basically, you can open it. So this package you need to add to your assets, and once you add it to your assets, you will find it here, and then from there you need to install. So currently the version number which we'll be having in this session is version 69, though there is a bit of an update again 69.0.1, but I think version 69 is also fine for this session. So once you install everything, you also need to go and install the samples. So example scenes, feature scenes, and tools, because these scenes will be very important for you to go through to understand how they have created various interactions, and they show various examples of those interactions. So in that you need to have these samples imported as well. So once you have this installed, you will be all set to go. So, and Meta has also created now a new documentation. I'll put this link into the chat. Put this link into the chat maybe. So from here you can find the documentation for the Meta Interaction SDK, which is basically you will require to refer to every now and then whenever you are working with interactions. So what is the Interaction SDK? So Interaction SDK is basically whenever you are in VR, you need to interact with objects, like grabbing an object or doing some ray casting, or you want to have some kind of a gestures. So previously what it was like, we just had access to the controller APIs, and all these interactions developers used to code it through scripts, through customized scripts. So there were a lot of non-standard interaction SDKs in the market of various individual developers. But what Meta has done is they have built their own package which helps you quickly basically just create various interactions. So these are some examples of what you can do using the Meta Interaction SDK right out of the box. So you don't need to write any custom scripts, you just need to use the components which are provided in the SDK, and from there you can just start building the, what we can say, various interactions. So if you see in these are, and basically why I told you to download the samples, because whatever you are seeing right now, all these samples are there in the downloaded scenes. So if you open those scenes and if you deploy it on your MetaQuest headset, you can directly experience this, and they have given all various kinds of interaction which are possible. So we'll go through not everything, but we'll go through the fundamentals of the Interaction SDK and what we can say, the architecture in which you will understand how to start building out these kind of scenes fast. So if you see, there are grab interactions, then there are these kind of poke interactions. Like these are very useful if you want to have press buttons or press based or poke based interactions. So this can poke on a canvas of a UI as well as on a 3D model. Then there are poses. So if you see, you can customize these poses and you can use these poses for various events. So you can use maybe multiple poses or gestures to activate a trigger, an action. So yeah, you can see. So one thing is the pose and the next thing is the gesture. So pose is basically, if you see, just what is your hand pose. So that's a static thing. But a gesture is basically your hand pose plus hand movement. So the pose plus movement is the gesture. So you can also customize various gestures and create this kind of interactions. And then there is a distance grab. So if you want to pick an object which is far away, so you can just use the distance grab example to create this kind of effect. So if you can see, and even in distance grab, you can see move distant interactables. So something which is far away, but you can move it from your current position. Second is interactable to hand, in which you can just bring that object to your hand and then move it. And third is like you can just have a virtual hand there and it moves there. So there are these kind of various kind of permission combinations which are there. This is touch grab. This is basically directly using your hand to pick up an object, not with a ray, but directly with the mesh of your hand, of your virtual hand. So yeah, in this way you can start using it. So this is the way. So how to start using the interaction SDK? So what I'll do is I'll just create a new scene completely, and this is not save this scene. So we'll create a new scene completely. And once you have the Meta XR package installed, you can, on the bottom right corner, there is this frame, there is this icon of Meta which you can click, and you can see the project setup tool. So this project setup tool that you have, if there is any issue, you need to click fix or apply. So now we are on the Android version, which you can go from find, build settings, Android, and you need to switch to Android platform because Meta XR, Meta Quest is an Android headset. And what I have done is I have connected my headset with this controller, with this cable, so that it detects the headset here. So for having this developer setup on your headset is a completely different thing. It is, the documentation for it is also given in the same link which I have put. So you need to do that setup when you want to build any kind of when you want to test your interactions in the headset. And then once you are connected, you should be able to see Oculus Quest 3 here, so that whenever you can play test the scene, you can quickly play it and test it in your headset. And you need to click on the Quest link in your headset so that it will start that Oculus Rift kind of PC link, which you can, whatever you play inside, you will be visible in the headset, because that will be required often for doing the play testing. So this is the project setup. So basically, once you have done the project setup, you are just ready to build it. And if you go into the XR plugin management in the Oculus, you should have Quest 3 selected as the target device. Otherwise, it will not build the app to Quest 3. Now, this is a blank scene. Now, one more thing which is provided by Meta is if you click again on the Meta icon in the bottom right corner, you can see building blocks. So once you click on the building blocks, you will get this window of building blocks. You just need to attach it here. And as I have already explained this in a previous video on the channel, what are building blocks? So basically, building blocks are directly components which get added to your scene, and they help you quickly build a VR experience or a mixed reality experience. So I'll show you. So let's say if you want a basic of any VR experience is your view of the camera, like what you are watching. And that, if you want to add that, you just need to click the camera rig. So once you have the camera rig, you can delete the main camera because this is not required. So this camera rig, now you can see here, it is called as a building block. Currently, it doesn't have any dependencies because that's the core dependency of any other building block. It should have a camera rig, and it is not used by any other blocks because we have not added any other blocks. Now, if you build this scene, so what I'll do is I'll quickly wear the headset and just show you how does it look with the basic camera rig. So I'm wearing my headset, and I'll just start the Rift link here. And if you see now, once it's still getting into the environment. Okay, so now I'm into the environment, and now I'll click the play button here, and you can see my view in this bottom right corner. So see, now I'm looking at this environment. This is a blank sky environment, but the camera, just because of the camera rig, I'm able to view this environment. So this is the basic test that you can do initially. Now, to make this scene, now this is virtual reality because you are looking at the virtual skybox. But if you want this to be a mixed reality, what you need to do is just add the pass-through. So once you add the pass-through, now you see this has gone blank because in mixed reality, you don't need the, you don't need any other virtual environment. You just need your real environment. Now let's play this scene again and see what I'll be seeing here. Okay, so now what I'm seeing, you will not be able to see here because I'm just looking at my real room from the headset. I'm just looking at the real room in a video pass-through kind of an environment because here there is no virtual thing currently in the environment. But now this is a mixed reality experience. So you just need to add the pass-through to make it a mixed reality experience. The third block, which is important, is the controller tracking and the hand tracking. So even if you just search for it, hand, so you will see hand tracking. So what I'll do is I'll quickly add those two components, controller tracking. Yeah, controller tracking and hand tracking. So now, if you see, there are these blocks added, and we'll quickly go through this structure. By the way, if you have any questions, you can just start posting in the chat box, and if you want to go it a bit fast or slow, you can do it. So yeah, so under the camera rig, now there is this tracking space. Pass-through is a separate building block, and it only relies on the camera rig, and it works only on this single component, OVR pass-through layer. So by the way, whatever I'm teaching right now, it's not part of the Interaction SDK, but these are all the prerequisites you need to set up before you start working with the Interaction SDK. So you have this pass-through, you have this camera rig, and under the tracking space, now after you add the other things, the controller and the hand tracking, so these are the eye anchors, but under the left hand and the right hand anchors, now you see there is a left controller anchor and left controller in hand anchor, right controller anchor, right controller in hand anchor. So these two are basically your controller tracking and hand tracking. So this is the hand tracking. But now, if you visualize these hands, those will be very basic hands with basic visualization. They will not look quite good. They will have just a plain color on your hand, and it will not even be transparent, and it will not look that good. So, but it's interesting to study what components gets added. So if you see, these are all the various virtual models. So if you want, so now if I play the scene, what I'll see in my headset is when I pick up the controllers, I'll be able to see the virtual model of the controller in my hand. And this model is decided based on which headset we are playing on. So if we are playing on the MetaQuest headset, we will see the MetaQuest controller. If we are playing on the Quest 2, Quest 2 had a different controller. Quest 3 has a different controller. So those controller models will appear based upon what the headset is on. So those models are in this controller anchor, in the controller tracking part. And this selects based on the headset that we are wearing. Similarly, if you go to the hand tracking part, now this is exciting. So if you see, there are various components here: OVR hand, OVR skeleton. I have made a separate hand tracking video of how hand tracking works. You can go and check that video out. In that, I have explained what these different components do. But basically, these are responsible for tracking your real hands and making them with the basic visualization. But if you want to improve this visualization, you can add this synthetic hands component. So there is, oh, now the synthetic hands is gone. So I think, yeah, virtual hands. Synthetic hands is replaced by virtual hands now. So you now can add virtual hand and you will get this. Okay, the name still is synthetic left hand, synthetic right hand. And this, now you can see the dependency. So this building blocks makes things just very easy to track which components are in the scene. And now you can see there are various synthetic hands here. Okay, so synthetic left hand and synthetic right hand. Let's now just try playing this scene. So once you do this, you can try playing this scene in your environment. Now this is a mixed reality environment. Now if you see, I can look at the virtual controllers because controllers are in my hand. And I'll place the controllers down on the table. And now I can see the virtual hands as well. So if I put the controllers down, I see the virtual hands. And if I pick up the controllers, I can see the controllers. So this is the very first state you need to have when you start working with a mixed reality application. You need to get the camera rig right. You need to get your controllers and hand tracking right, because without this, you can't start setting up your interactions with any objects. So I'll stop this scene. And Now there are other building blocks as well. So there are building blocks for grab interaction, poke interaction, teleporting if you want to teleport in a scene, but obviously in mixed reality you don't teleport because you're in your room. You will not go magically to other part of your room just by teleporting. Teleporting is for virtual reality. And but anything which is related to interacting with a component, you have the building blocks for it. But in this video we will use the building blocks later on, but for now I don't want to just use the building block right off the bat because it just makes things very easy. We are here to understand how the interaction SDK works. So we'll go back to the documentation, and this documentation is like pretty good. So I've just what we can say, created different tabs here to take you through various sections of the interaction SDK. So just to understand what are the different features of the interaction SDK, this first page gives you very good information. So there are multiple ways to grab an object, as we already saw in this video. Then you can do raycasting, you can do poking, you can do teleporting. Then you can manipulate objects using grabbables. So there are various kind of grabbables. So like you can grab and scale an object, you can grab and position it, you can grab and rotate it. There are different kind of things there. And custom gesture, custom hand models, and customizable UI prefabs. So we'll see what all we can cover in this live stream. Obviously we will be doing some custom gestures and those things, maybe not custom hand models for now, but yeah. So how to get started with it? So we have done all this project setup thing. As I already told you, we have done this thing. We have done the package manager thing. We have run the Unity project setup tool, and yeah, everything comes under the Unity project setup tool. So you need to have this thing set up and done. So now to first add an interaction, there is a thing called quick actions. So that I'll show you directly in Unity. Let's say we added a cube here. Now we want to add a 3D model to the scene. So we have added this cube. Now this is a very big size cube. It will look very big in VR. So we'll just make it 0.1 by 0.1 by 0.1. And if this cube is in the scene, we'll see where, okay, our camera rig is here. So this cube is where at the top. We need to have it in the front of us mostly. Okay, so now this cube is just a static cube. It doesn't have it has a box collider, but it doesn't have gravity, so it will not fall. But it's not grabbable. It's just a 3D object currently. So how to make it grabbable? So earlier we need to add various components to it by searching, by going through the documentation, and that was a very tedious process. But now Meta has provided a very handy way to do it. Obviously building block is one method, but there is another method called as quick actions. So you right click, you go to interaction SDK, and you can see there are basic interactions which are added here: grab interaction, ray grab, distance grab, teleport, ray interaction to canvas, poke interaction to canvas. So canvas is for basically the UI elements, but now for 3D element we can just click add grab interaction, and then this wizard comes up, a grab wizard. So you want to select here add required interactors. So what you want to add? You want to add it to the hands. So you want, first of all, we added virtual hands. We added we added hand tracking, and we added synthetic hands, but we have not added the capability for the hands to grab object, and that comes with an interactor. So what is an interactor? So if you go in the documentation, and if you go, this is the part of add user input and interaction. So this is the part of the interaction SDK related documentation. There are other features as well, but this is just the interaction SDK part. And if you go in the interactions part, and if you go in the architecture part, so you see there are 3 different components here. Input from the data headset comes to controllers and hands. And what happens? So on the hand models or on the hand game objects, you need to have interactors. So if you want to grab an object, you need to have a grab interactor. If you want to snap an object, you need to have a snap interactor. If you want to poke an object, you need to have a poke interactor. And these interactors need to be present on the game objects for controllers and hands. So if you want to have hand-based grab or a controller-based grab, both components should have their own grab interactors. Similarly for snap and poke interactors. So that becomes the input method for the hands and the controllers. And with those interactors, you need to assign objects which are interactables. like let's say now we have added a cube into our scene. So this cube, if we add a grab interactable to it, it becomes the grab interactable. So then now only if we add the interactable component to the cube, but we have not added the interactor component to the hands or the controllers, we'll not be able to grab it. So both these components should be there on the objects, but Meta has made it easy. And just before moving, we'll just cover the stage 3. And in this stage, the interactor detects interactable when we have an event, like a grab event or a controller button press. So whatever we have linked that event to, when that event happens, the interactor detects an interactable and it grabs that interactable. So in this way, the interaction mechanic basically works. And finally, the stage 4, there are other stages as well. When the interactor selects interactable, means it detects interactable, then it selects interactable, and then it moves the interactable. So basically this completes the journey of an interaction as defined. So hope you have got everything till now. I'll just pose this question here. So that I'll just get a response, because I think if the stream is laggy, I'll not get a response in real time. Okay, till then if I'm getting the response. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, so once this is done, we have understood the journey of interaction. Now let's get back to the quick actions part. So now what we will do is we need to add the interaction to this cube. So this is add to hands. So we need to, the interactors required for the new interactable will be added for the device types selected here if not already present. So you need to add the required to hands as well and to everything. So everything means currently we already will add the interaction to the controllers because that is by default required, but we also need to add the grab interaction to the hand so that we are able to pick up the object by the hand. So we will keep this add to hands thing. Then supported grab types. So there are various grab types. There is a pinch grab, there is a palm grab. So these are the two main types of grab, and all and everything is the same. Like we want all these kinds of grab types. So let's have all. Now we already have a collider, so we don't need to generate the collider. But if you see required components, there is not a rigid body present. So we don't need to add a rigid body manually here. We just need to click fix all and it just adds a rigid body, and whatever is missing, it just adds to it. And now what we can do is we'll click create. So once you click create, if you now see in the interaction building block, so there was this tracking space building block. Now there is a new building block called as the interaction building block. And this interaction building block is used by the virtual hands and the hand interactions. This hand interactions now, if you see the left hand and the right hand, and there are all the different features that have been added now. Now all these components, all these game objects make an interactive interactor. So these are the interactors that have added, and on the object there is the interactable. So on the cube there is nothing, but under the cube if you see a child object has been added, which is the ISDK hand grab interaction, and on this there is a grabbable, there is a hand grab interactable, and there is a grab interactable. So grabbable makes it grabbable, hand grab interactable makes it grabbable by hands, and grab interactable makes it grabbable by the controllers as well. So now if you see, yeah, we'll just see what is there in the interactors. So if you see in the interactors, there is a basic hand component which makes it like, which is like, we need to assign our virtual hand to this. So that's why this is the hand data left, in which you will see the various dependencies which it has. And here if you see there's a left hand and then there is a right hand. And if you see there is a thing called hand active state. So hand active state, and again there is a left hand active state, so which takes in the hand component itself. So active state is a thing a part of the architecture of the interaction SDK. So if you see in the architecture, in the architecture part, so we have seen interactors, we have seen interactables, we have seen the interactable lifecycle as well. But if there is also a concept of an active state. So active state means it checks what is active, whether the controller is active, whether the hand is active, and also whether we are grabbing a cube or not. So the various stages of the interactable lifestyle are tracked by a thing called as an active state. So they are asking like use active state and everything, but yeah, so whether it's active or not, even they have given an active state debug visual which can let you know whether it's active or not. But for now, we'll just understand there is a thing called hand active state, because this will be required as we start building interactions, because we need to track the various active states, like for making gestures and everything. So this is the active state. This is the hand grab interactor. Now all these components, now you don't need to change anything here, but it's good to just understand the various components and information for all these components. If you want to find, you can find on the documentation. So if I just add hand grab interactor, so, or maybe hand grab, yeah, so I think, yeah, if you go to interactors, so you will understand here what are the various interactors and how it works. So yeah, so there's the documentation is quite detailed, but now this has been done. So let's test it quickly. So once you have all these areas present, the visual thing and everything is present, now we will test this scene and we'll understand if it is working or not. So the cube is quite far away from me. So what I'll do just manually is I'll have this cube. Oh, I think the cube the cube is very far away from me. So I think we need to have the cube a bit. Oh, sorry, we are not moving the cube. We are moving the hand interaction, grab interaction part. We'll move the cube a bit upside. Oh, okay, now I can see the cube in front of me. I think you can see it in the game view as well. So if I now pick this cube, you can see it's now become grabbable. Just, you don't have to do any kind of complex component setup. Everything was done just by the tools provided by Meta Interaction SDK, and now it's grabbable. Let's see if I can grab it with the controllers as well. So for controllers, there is this grab button. I'm not able to grab it by the controllers. Oh, so I'm not able to grab it by the controllers. So let's try to investigate this. Why it's not grabbable by the controllers. If I add a grab interaction here, it will just add a cube with a hand grab. Okay. It is already added that hand grab thing here. Oh, okay. But now it has also added controller tracking and controller interactions, which was missing in the quick actions part. So if I added it from the grab interaction from here, so there is another cube now which has been added into the scene. So this is a different cube now. So I'll just delete the earlier cube and I will use this cube, which is from the building blocks. And if we play it, let's see. Okay, I can see the cube. I can grab it with the hand and I can grab it with the controller as well. That's nice. So let's just investigate what different happened here, which made the cube interactable by controller as well. So if I just, oh, sorry. Okay, so if you see, there are a few more components which are added now. Earlier there were hand interactions added, but now under the interaction part, there are controller interactions added as well. Now this building block is a new building block which has been added just because we added the grab interaction building block. There is no separate building block for controller interactions. So if you just search controller interactions, there is no building block as such, but the grab interaction building block has the controller interactions building block built in. So if you add this to your scene, control interactions will also be added. So now there are hand interactions as well as control interactions. And the control interactions, so it's very easy. The structure is very easy. So under the hand interactions, there are interactions for hand, left hand, right hand. Under the control interactions, there are interactions for left controller and right controller. And again, if you see, there is a controller active state. Here, there is a hand active state. So you can now start to understand what is the architecture of Meta. Okay, so in this way, it has been built up. So the left controller and the right controller, again, this has the OBR controller data source and the OBR controller visual. So all these things are related to the controllers. Then left hand, which is with the controller, which should be the axis. So all information has been already provided in this. So you also may just dig down and understand how these things are set up by the interaction SDK. It's good, like, because if you want to do any kind of customization in your interaction, you may need to refer these components, change some variables, move some, call some methods. But for building basic interactions, whatever is provided by Meta is quite sufficient. So in this way, we can add the hand grab interaction. So now let's have a different interaction in the scene. Let's have a ray interaction. So if I click ray interaction, now there is a different thing added here, a different cube. So what we'll do is we'll just hide the earlier cube and we will use this ray interaction. So now in the ray interaction, there is a ray interactable. As we told, instead of grab interactable, there is a ray interactable, and there is a thing called collider surface. So collider surface is required whenever you are using a ray, because how the ray casting in Interaction SDK works is the ray collides on a surface, and this surface is tracked not just by the box collider, but Meta also have created their own component called collider surface. So now that's why if you want to build a 3D menu of pokeable objects, even that canvas, that 2D canvas has a collider surface on which the poke ray collides, the poke finger collides. So that's why this collider surface is important. At that time, they may not be a box collider, there can be something like a plane, and that plane will have a box collider, and that will be used here. So now let's try this. So what we'll do is we will just move this a bit high and see how the ray interaction works. Okay, so if you see, oh, my hands are looking a bit weird, I don't know. That's because I think both interactions are there. Okay, I think I'm not able to use the ray interaction directly. And these kind of issues quite happen during mixed reality and AR/VR development. Some collisions doesn't work, or something gives an issue. So we'll just try to understand what is the issue here. So we have the ray interaction here added. Block in current scene. Okay, everything is added here. I don't know why the box collider was not checked. I'll check it maybe and see if this works. Because sometimes it might be just building blocks is still like a beta feature. It may have something missing. Sometimes you have to check it. What it has added. Oh, okay, now I can see it. Okay, so if you see, the ray is getting collided, but currently there is no interaction that is happening. But yeah, I think it might be just this hand interaction, but it is not coming towards me. So I think because that is not set up in that. It is just for detecting the ray on the thing. Oh, so it's just select the buttons or objects using a ray. So it is just for selecting, not grabbing. But if you see in the quick actions, so if I add a cube again to the scene of 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, And if I right click the cube interaction SDK, so yeah, now here you can see there is a ray grab interaction. So some things are provided in the quick actions and something are provided in the building blocks. So let's see, now we'll do the ray grab interaction here. So again, add to hands, add to controllers. If you see earlier, we were not seeing add to controllers because controller tracking was not added on the objects there, on the controller objects there. Now everything is there. We'll just click fix all, so everything will be fixed. Okay, but now there is no collider surface. So what we can do is we can quickly add a collider surface here. So we can add a collider surface, and once we add a collider surface, we can just assign it the box collider, and we can just also assign this collider surface to it. So we can also define this surface. We can have a shorter surface or longest, bigger surface, depends on how much area we want for the collision. And now we click create. So now, okay, now if you see, a ray interactor has been added under the right hand and under the left hand as well. Now, as there was a grab interactor, but there was not a ray interactor, that's why we were not able to interact with the object. This is weird because in the building blocks, the grab interaction set up everything, but the ray interaction didn't set up everything. So this is the hand grab interactor, and now we have both interactors under the left and right scene, and also on this cube also we now have the ray grab interaction. So now both interactions are working together. Let's see, let's play this. Now even if the cube is a bit far away, I should be able to grab it with the rays. Oh, okay, now if you see, I have the cube. Able to grab it. Oh, okay, there's a different cube there. Okay, there's a different cube and in the bottom. Okay, I'm able to grab this one because it has the ray and grab both. So if you see, with my hands I can do both. The hands are looking weird because I think there's some problem. I think there are two visualization acting on the hand. We need to fix that. So we'll just stop this. We'll see why the hands are looking weird. So basically, if these kind of issues appear, you just need to dig down a bit, and that is still required. Even though Meta has made a lot of things easy, there can be these kind of instances of some broken things happening. So if you go to hand interaction, and there is a thing called hand visuals, we need to see what is happening in the hand visuals. So and left. Okay, this is the interaction part. We don't need to be in the interaction part. So know the categorization. All the components required for interaction are under the building block of interaction, and in that we have hand interaction and control interactions. But this is not a part of interaction. This is part of visuals. So we again need to go into the tracking space. Then there is this left hand anchor, right hand anchor. We need to check under first. Let's check under the left hand anchor, and in that there is this hand tracking. Okay, so if you see, there is this material which is being applied. This yellow material is being applied. But I think there was something for visuals. We'll just see by, okay. So there is this left hand visual and right hand visual of the synthetic hand. Oh, okay, yeah. So this synthetic hand and that both are working together, I think. We don't need that. Go to the left hand controller, under the left hand controller tracking. Oh, so synthetic hands is I think is missing. Let's add that again maybe. Oh, it's still there. So if you want to find a component, you can go again to the building blocks and you can just press this. Okay, it is under the hand interactions. Oh, okay. So it is under the hand interactions part where you can see the synthetic hand. Then I think we should only have the visuals of this. OVR mesh renderer. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we will just toggle this OVR mesh renderer off, and we will see whether it turns off that that visual, because we don't want to render the mesh. We just want to have the virtual mesh. Let's see. Okay, we don't want. Okay. Let's see now whether it works. Okay, so if you see, the visualization is gone. That was coming because the OBR mesh renderer was also there, which was for the plain hand tracking, and the virtual hands were also working. So now we only have the virtual hands, and now this is working. Cool. So now our hands look like those which are look in mixed reality games. So now this is like a good looking hand. Okay. Stop this. Yeah, so I think you've got how to add these kind of interactions. We will just remove the earlier block. Okay. Similarly, if you see under the cube, there are other interactions as well. Distance grab, teleport interaction. But what I want is you can try these interactions now. Now we will move towards what we can say, looking at the scenes, example scenes which are provided by the Interaction SDK. So now we have understood a few concepts till now. Basically, we have understood the architecture of Interaction SDK, how the interactors work, how the interactables work, what are the various types of interactables, what is active state. There are still some detailed things like pointer events and everything, but I think we don't need to go into that detail because that's available on the documentation, and we don't need to, what we can say, everything is now abstracted. We don't need to go and understand those minor things just to build an interaction. But yeah, but if you want to have some kind of customization, heavy customization, then surely you need to understand why the pointer event is not happening or anything like that. But yeah, but the meta documentation is quite awesome now. You can go under it. Now what we'll do is we'll see one by one features, but we will see from how the features have been set up in the example scenes, because the example scenes provide everything. So I have told you already how to go to the example scene, but when you how to download the example scene, but once it's downloaded, in your assets folder you will see the samples, and under the samples folder you should see this Meta Interaction SDK folder, and under that you will see what are the various example scenes and what are the so there are example scenes, there are feature scenes, and there are tools. So feature scenes cover individual features, like, and these are all debug scenes, means it's just they will just debug whether the feature is happening or not, means whether the grab is happening or not, whether the poke is happening or not, whether the gesture is happening or not. So you see the gesture, you see the hand grab, poke, pose. So if you want to just understand an individual feature, you can go and check the feature scene, and then there are example scenes in which they take that individual feature and create various examples around that feature. So like just for pose, there are this pose example scene. So if we open this pose example scene, we don't want to, should we save it? Yeah, I think maybe we'll just save it. Demo scene. Okay. So now if we go under the pose example scene, so here you will find everything which was there in the video. So now this has everything, how the pose needs to be built. So it has the same camera rig. I'm not going through it again because I have already explained this structure to you, but now we will see how various poses are set. So these are the various poses. So just to set up a thumbs up left, you can see how they have set up the thumbs up left using which components. So I think what we'll do is the main part of Interaction SDK, which you will be using the most, will be obviously the grab and ray interaction, which you already covered, but the second is the pose and the gesture interaction, because that are more important. So we will cover those in this session, and maybe then I'll have some individual smaller videos for snapping and even maybe let's have poke as well in this session. So poke and pose we will cover, and maybe for snapping and some of the UI, I'll just create some shorter videos, because what I want this session to be is you to have an overall understanding of how you have to use this SDK from the available content that is given by Meta, the example scenes, the various components, and the architecture. So that's the high level thing which I want you to have after this session. So if you, but everything, if you want, like let's say if you have under the features, you can see everything: grabbing, poking. So, and everywhere they have given this example scene as well. They have referred to this example scene. So they want you to go and check out example scene. So I think we'll start with poking, then posing, and then the custom gesture. So let's start poking. We have covered the grab and ray. Let's go to the poke. So again, for poke, there is a separate interactor. So I think we can just quickly add it in our scene, but right now we don't want to do that again, add from the building blocks and those things. We just want to see the example. So the best way is to go to a feature scene and check out the debug poke example. Now this will have a single object with the poke thing. So if you see here, debug poke, so you will just make this. So this is the poke interactable. So it has the poke interactable. So this is the object on which this poke interactable has been added. So it has the model. Let's try and play this scene in this. Okay. So now, so if you see, I can see my hands in the scene. Hopefully you are able to see it. And now use your hands to press the button. So this is the button. So now this is just debugging whether the press is happening or not. That's it. But generally debugging is very important, because if the debug is working, you can replace the debug logic by your event trigger logic, what you want to happen. Like on this button, if you want that object to be hidden, you can code that. So in this way it has set up. So if you see, there is this surface, as I already told you, there is a component called as a plane surface, and this plane surface is defining the area of the poke. Generally in poking, we have a concept of a surface. So if you see, there is this master component called as the poke interactable, and this requires a surface patch, and this is under the model and on thing called as a surface. So clipped plane surface means first we just add a plane surface to let it know like it's a surface, because we can add a different kind of surface as well. So yeah, there you can see there's a collider surface, but this is a plane surface. So it's not a collider surface, it's a plane surface. And if you want to face it backward, forward, and this clipped plane surface means it has been clipped basically to the boundaries of this clipper, and this is a bounce clipper. So if you click show visuals, so it is showing the visual of this. So see, I can change this. So I can define. So if you see, this is changing like this. So I can define the boundary of this clipping. So the interactable will only work on that area. Let's try and okay, I have just reduced the size of this plane clipper, and let's try this. What happens? Okay, so now if I press here, nothing is happening at the sides, because it's a plane, the bounds is now reduced. So the poking is not happening here, but let's try at the center. Oh, I think in the center is also, it's not happening, because I think it has gone into some negative space, I think. Oh yeah, it's into negative space. Now let's bring it to the positive. Means it had gone below 0. That's why I think it was not doing the poke. Let's try it again. I'll wear my headset. Okay, and now, oh, at the side it is not happening. You see, at the sides it is not happening, but at the center it is happening. So I have reduced the area of the poke, and now it is happening at the wherever in that specific area. So this is the level of control that these components provide you to create any kind of interaction. So let's have it at 1 again. So now it is again defined by this. So you can show and hide the surface visuals as well. Yeah, so that was the poke interaction for you. Now let's move to a different interaction, which is the pose interaction. So let's go into debug pose and we will not save it. Now you'll understand how poses are created. Maybe till then we can just take any question if it is there. I'll just see if any question is there. Okay, so I think we can move ahead again. Uh, so now let's see how different poses are created. So first let's try and play this scene. This is a debug pose scene. Okay, so this is just a debug scene. So it will just detect whether the pose is happening or not. Okay, so I am playing this scene now. You can see in the game view. Okay. Now, whatever pose I do, it will be detected. So thumbs up pose right. So if you see, there are three, in the concept of active state, there is also a concept of active state group. So first is the active state. So if you see transform recognizer active state. So I just move this, zoom a bit to just show you how a pose is constructed. So if you see, there is a shape recognizer active state, there is a transform recognizer active state. So active state also has various types. Transform recognizer means whether your hands are facing the right direction. So if you see thumbs up pose, and shape means exactly the shape of the pose. So if you see the transform recognizer active state, if I'm doing like this, the transform means my direction is right, but my pose is not right. So see, if you see my pose was not right, my direction of the hand is right, but pose is not right. Now if I just pose it completely, so when both the active states are right, the active state group is right, is true. So like transform recognizer active state true, shape recognizer active state true. If both are true, then the active state group becomes true, and then it becomes the correct pose. That is how a pose is constructed. So direction is right, but still this is not the right pose. Pose is right, now it is the right pose. Now let's see, pose is right. If you see, the pose is right. That's why the shape recognizer active state group is green, but the direction is not right. That's why the transform recognizer is red. Now both are right. Similarly for the left, if I do this, it's the right pose, but this, the direction is not right. This, the direction is right. So that's the basic of how a pose is constructed. So now if you see, let's try to break down how this is constructed. Let's take any pose. Let's take this thumbs up pose left. So first it's, and then this is the debug actually, which works on the debug thing. So this thumbs up pose, if you see, there is a hand reference, because if we want to construct the left pose. So first we take the hand reference, which is the left hand, which you see is here in the component, in the interaction components. Then selector unity event wrapper. Then we need an event wrapper. So what is the event wrapper? It's an active state selector. So this is the active state selector added here. So what is the active state selector? It takes in the active state. And what is the active state? The active state is the active state group, not a single standalone active state, because we want the direction right as well as the shape right. So the transform recognizer active state, this is one active state, this is the second active state, and the active state group takes in both the active states and it performs a logical operation. So it's AND or XOR. So AND means you need both the poses to be right, or means you need one of the poses to be right. So basically this is the AND thing. So you need both the poses to be right. So if both the poses are right, then this active state group is right. So basically active state selector, this is the tracking thing. This is the tracking component which tracks whether the active state group is true or not. And that's why we provided the active state as the active state group. So this is the active state selector, and then this is the event wrapper. So this event wrapper checks whether the pose has happened or not. And then here, if you add anything, you can decide what should happen on that pose. So let's do one thing. We have this armchair object. So we'll select this armchair object and we will assign it, like when selected, this game object should get hidden. So game object dot set active false means it will get hidden. When selected means when the pose happens, this armchair should get hidden. And when the pose is not there, means if we just remove the, if we just deactivate the pose, sorry, not this, yeah, then it should be again visible. Let's see if this logic works. So now we have added one, apart from the debug visual, we have also added an event there. We have also added something to happen. Oh, so now if you see, if I do the left pose, you can see the armchair is getting hidden. So this is how you are constructing a pose interaction. And if I deactivate the pose, it is again showing up. That's how easy it is to set up a pose. So I'll just delete these events again. And this is how you do pose for, similarly for the left hand, right hand. And then they have these debug components. These are just these are helper components provided to recognize basically, so to make the change of this UI. So when it plays, it will show some additional details for debugging purposes. This obviously you will not need in a game. That's why, but they have, this is just for the UI changes to happen on the when you do the right pose. But for the event, you can just use when you construct any pose, you can use this select event unity wrapper, selector unity event wrapper. So this is how a pose is constructed. So we have covered debug poke, we have covered debug pose as well, and now move to the interesting area, which is the gesture. So what is the difference between the pose and the gesture? Let's see that. So we'll just hide this, and now we'll see the gesture part. Let's play the scene first. That's the best way to first. So this is the best way to study the interaction SDK. I'll suggest you go into each and every of the feature scenes, try every scene, do the debugging and understand what is happening. So it is telling you perform a swipe gesture with either hand and observe the changes in the debug tree. So this is basically the way to learn interaction SDK. So you just provide the so see, if I do the correct swipe gesture, everything becomes active. And whatever you see in that tree, That are all the components which are required to set up any gesture. So if I move the hand, maybe I'll just maximize this window. I've done this for the pose as well, but I'll just maximize this. Now I think it will be clear. Okay, so if I do this gesture correctly, this is for the right, it is being correct, and this is for the left. For the left, okay, sequence active state, sequence joint velocity active state. So what it is tracking is whether the hand is moving. The nodes are green when active state is active and red when inactive. Okay, so if you see this at the top, you see the swipe forward gestures right, that is the sequence active state. Under that there is swipe forward gesture right sequence. So there was earlier the concept only of the active state, but here there is a concept of active state as well as a sequence, because the gesture is a movement. So that is a sequence basically. So when everything is happening, then the gesture is correct. So hand moving, so that is basically a component, whether the hand is moving or not. See, if my hand is just moving, the hand moving becomes green. I can move the hand in any direction. It's just tracking whether the hand is moving or not. If my wrist is rotating, see, so the hand moving is also right and wrist is also rotating. So they have deconstructed a gesture and made it everything into a separately trackable component. And then when all components gets tracked correctly, then that gesture happens. So hand is moving, wrist is rotating. Again, if you see for the swiping, the hand is swiping. So for the hand swipe, again the wrist up. So you need to have the wrist up. If the wrist is down, the wrist up head active states are not, wrist is down. Hand is sideways, that's fine. But the hand is sideways, but the wrist upward and wrist up head is not green. So again, that is problem. But when the hand is sideways and the wrist up is fine, then the hand sideways. So now see, it is swiping, but it is still not moving at the speed. So it also requires a speed, and that is being tracked by the hand speed, and that is being tracked by the hand movement. And the hand is pointing forward. So everything should movement, and the hand is pointing forward. So everything should happen to make this gesture work. So again, that was the basic of. So again, that was the basic of it. Let's just see the components which they have used for it. So let's just decode the right gesture. So in the right gesture, we are providing various references. First is the hand reference, then there is the active state selector reference, and you need to set up all these components if you want to build a custom gesture. But what I suggest is you can take this existing gesture and then just modify your components into it instead of adding each and every component. So hand reference is there, active state selector is there, sequence active state is there under the main gesture. Then under that there are provided references, which are the finger feature state provider. It tracks the finger feature, and if you see, this is provided in the hand features. So if you go into the over interaction, these are the trackable things here, the finger feature state provider. So these basically, even if you are not doing gestures, this component is used for regular hand tracking where the fingers are getting tracked. So Meta is using that component which is used for general purpose hand tracking and using it when detecting gestures. So that's how this architecture is set up. So these are some provided references in which we take the finger feature state provider reference, transform feature state provider reference. So reference means this is not a separate component, this is just a reference. It is taking directly from the right or the left hand. So it is taking from the hand features. So all these references are being taken in the provider references and joint delta provider reference. So delta is basically when your hand is moving, let's say it's here and then it's here. The middle is the delta part. So that delta is being used for tracking the hand movement. And that's why first we take this reference, then we check whether the hand is moving forward. So how the hand pointer forward is calculated? It takes the swipe forward gestures right, means this one uh, okay, sorry. Yeah, it takes the hand reference, then it takes the transform feature state provider reference, and then this you have to set this up. So maybe what I'll do is I'll create a detailed video on hand gestures, because it's a complex topic. It can't be covered entirely in this masterclass, because just for the gestures I'll need to explain how to use the palm towards face, palm away from face, and everything. But you understand, this is how individually things are set up to make a gesture. And then again, as all these things should be together in active state group, and when this active state group becomes active, then the gesture happens. Yeah, so this way, and then this debug thing is also set up, which I had told previously as well. And similarly, if you see, yeah, and for the hand, this is the hand moving and wrist rotating. So this is just the joint velocity active state. Means it is again tracking whether the joint velocity is as. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to cover basically in the first session of this masterclass. This was provided, well, this was created mainly to help you understand how the architecture are set up, what are the key components of the masterclass, how to set up the grab interaction, ray interaction, poke interaction. It's a huge subject, and I'll be making shorter videos on individual features as well. But this was like an overview session which gives you a complete understanding of what are the various kinds of interactions possible, and how the features have been implemented, what are the various components in it. And you can also go into the documentation and check some of these things here. So just post in the comments what did you find interesting in this, and if you want detailed videos on individual interaction topics as well. Surely I'll be creating thing for gestures, because I know it's a complex topic and it will be too much to cover in this single session. So I will be creating the gestures masterclass as well, gestures video as well, and you can tell me in the session that in the comments that what all features do you want covered. So have any questions till now, you can post chat. Okay, so I think we can end the session here. Hope you have understood the basics of the interaction SDK, and also some of the advanced topics that we tried to cover, especially from the feature architecture point of view. But obviously we will be having some more detailed videos on those topics coming ahead. But yeah, this was how you can start getting started with the interaction SDK masterclass. Okay, so thank you for joining this session, and I'll see you in the next video. Your virtual hand. So yeah.